Hello, everyone, and welcome to Emma Explores. Today is going to be a very special first of the year for 2026 episode where Emma Cox, our very special guest and proprietor for this series, will introduce a whole set of discussions. So with that, let me get out of the way and hand it over to Emma Cox. Please go ahead, Emma.
Thanks, Barbara. So most people, I think, know me. I think Anne might be new to us. So just a brief explanation. I won't bother showing a slide or anything at this point, but I'm a genealogist based in England. I have lots and lots of different interests. I've been doing this for quite a long time now, probably 30 odd years. It's very addictive. I have loads and loads of interesting people in my tree and the wider tree. And what I do here is I try and pull out stories that I think are interesting, or facts or different things that I've discovered, and then say how I found them, the sources that I've used, and how other people might find them useful. So I thought in today's session, we've been doing this for over a year now, and I think there are about 10 episodes. Is that right? 10 or 12 episodes? I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, I think it's more like 15. Yeah.
Is it 15? Okay, so, and we've covered a wide range of different topics. And I just wanted to try and pick out a few of the slides that I've covered, some of the stories, and get people talking and sort of seeing, it's like, has that sparked something in you? Has it changed something that you do? Has it helped you find something else about your tree? So I'm just going to share my screen. So let's just start off with doing that. And I'm going to skip back and forth between sharing and not sharing. So let's do a share of this one. And we're going to just do from this slide here. So hopefully. So I'm going to introduce you to Caroline. So Caroline is my 2 times great grandmother. And she was one of the brick walls that I'd had in my tree for absolutely ages. And I didn't really know a great deal about her. I managed to actually go round her in a lot of ways, because I could find her parents, I could find her siblings, I knew my great-grandfather and everything like that. But she was a mystery because there was all sorts of different things. It's like her name, she had lots and lots of different names. So she was known as Catherine, Caroline, Caroline Edith Mary, Caroline Edith, or just Edith at different times in her life. So she was baptized when she was 23. Just before she got married. So again, that's quite unusual. And she spelt her surname differently to the way that her parents spelt their surname. So she had an F on the end of it and they didn't. Rumpf. So trying to find her was one of my mysteries. And then where was she, when was she born? So it's sometime between 1863, 1868. She wasn't baptized as a child, and her elder sister was 19 years older than her. So when it's that sort of age gap, you sort of think, well, who are the parents? Was her eldest sister her parent and not the people who are down on her birth certificate eventually? It's all sorts of mysteries came up with this one. And both parents sadly died before she was 10 years old. So we actually find her on the census living with one of her brothers. And the census records, basically, people weren't necessarily consistent with what they wrote down, or they didn't necessarily know their ages. So her age jumped around a bit. So in terms of actually trying to find out when she was born, it wasn't the easiest of mysteries. And she was noted down as different places of birth. That's something that's also really quite common on the census. I think people sometimes either misinterpret the question or they hear it in some ways, because it's like, where were you born? Well, actually she's born in Norfolk, but she's been living in London for the last few years and she's put down London. So that's one of the things you really have to be aware of. It's like sort of and the age of the people's census. So again, she was a child in some of the younger ones, so she wouldn't necessarily have known where she was born. So just to show you that there are 5 different census records there. So she goes between Lambeth, Newington, Camberwell, and then she comes down to Sussex after she's married. And I'm just going to stop sharing again and just open it up and just ask everybody. It's like, well, have you got a brick wall? And has anything that has happened as part of Emma Explores helped you solve that brick wall? Anyone
Mine,
want to
Well,
start?
yes, if-
Jennifer.
yep, I do have a brick wall. And I spoke to you about my brick wall during an episode you did, and I forget what episode it was. But anyway, you gave me some websites or some ideas to go off and chase up. And I haven't totally solved my question about him, but I did pick up, it was a military question. I picked up other information that led me to build more of his story, but I'm still, trying to work on the answering the actual question. So,
With
but
all
that
of
was
these things,
really helpful. Yeah. Sorry.
it's not a quick solution, is it? It's like it's
No.
finding another little chunk of information and adding that and just seeing what
Yeah,
happens.
it's just step by step by step and thinking, oh yeah, that's interesting. It's not what I want, but it's interesting, but it's not the big thing I'm after. But so yeah, no, that was good. And it also, of course, there's other military people in my family too. So looking at him through, places that I hadn't really known to go, has sort of helped me sort of go back and chase up some of the others and grab a bit of information for them too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yes, so that was good. Thank you.
Bill, were you going to say something?
yeah. Well, I have one I've written about too. My great grandmother, um, who kind of like yours, every census was a, different age, and from a different state. Um, Pretty much, she didn't want to be found. I managed to find information on my great grandfather. Um, I've tested my DNA now with 4 different companies. A She does not show up anywhere. When we break it down and do the leads chart and everything, nothing. Um, and now I may have to go back and completely rethink what I'm doing. I did find a newspaper article um, mentioning my great grandfather, that his sister was visiting him in New Mexico about the time that he appears to have married my great grandmother. And I'm beginning to wonder now if maybe there was a little incest going on, which
Mm.
which would explain nothing showing up for her side of the family, because it was the same as my great grandfather's. So now I've got to go back and thoroughly research that sister and see if I find anything about her past that one newspaper article. And of course, researching women in the late 1800s, early 1900s is so much fun because they don't show up a lot of places. But that's kind of my only theory at the moment
One thing you could
concerning
do
her.
with that, Bill, you could actually look at your DNA, and if there are people that are from that line and they share more DNA with you than you expected,
Yeah,
then that might help back up your theory.
yeah, yeah. That's kind of what I'm getting ready to do, is go back and take another look at that. I mean, the DNA is how I found who my great grandfather's family was. I did DNA trace there, and it's there still seems to have been a rift somewhere uh, in the family, and so I'm wondering if maybe that was the cause.
Mhm. You never know what you're going to discover when you start
Oh
looking
no,
into things.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Anne, you've got your hand up. Would you like to say something?
Yes, I have been researching my grandmother, and I have her birth certificate. She was born in 1880. I have 3 census, and I have her death certificate. And Her birth certificate said she was born in 1880, but almost everything, though there are a few exceptions, says she's 4 years younger. So the census, two of the census said she's 4 years younger. And one of them is actually 11 years younger. Date of birth of my mother, so on the birth certificate, she's 4 years younger. And her death certificate, which is, they have a question mark beside her age, and they list the age that they list in the death certificate is 4 years younger. So I don't know if it was deliberate that she wanted to appear younger. She did work during the First World War and won a commander of the British Empire during that time. And I don't know if it was a thing that women wanted to appear younger. Oh, and by the way, on her marriage certificates, she's always at least 2 to 4 years younger than her first and her second husband. And it was like, it had to have been deliberate, but I don't at this point know why.
Maybe she actually believed that that was the case.
Well, I suppose it's possible. I mean, she knew where she was born. She had a birth certificate. I mean, I would assume she had a birth certificate, but we were able to get it. She was born in Fiji, and we were able to get an official one. So
What
I
you
don't know.
sometimes do come across is that there are children with the same names, which isn't quite what you're talking about. But you will find that a child is born and then dies, and then they will name another child the same name. And so that can happen sometimes 3 or 4 times. And that might be between census records. So you may not necessarily know that those children have been born and died. You might just have one is on a census and then it's died, and then another one's been born, been given the same name, and then that's on the census. So there's sort of situations where you have to think slightly creatively.
I mean, it was the first thing that sort of jumped out at me when I started looking at the materials my genealogist had found for me. And I went, what is it about her age? It was just that I started going through it, and she did as well. And I will look at that. I mean, I have her sister's memoir, and she talks about my grandmother, never talks about another one. Her sister is supposed to be the youngest in the family, and if the age in which she gives herself would be 4 years younger, so she would have been younger than her younger sister. So I don't know. It was like she didn't want to be older for some perception, was my thought, especially older than her husband or things like that. But it's very strange. There's a lot of information about her, and all the dates are different.
And the lady I mentioned just then, her name was Caroline. Her first husband was my great grandfather, and he was 43 years older than her.
Wow.
And they were only married for about 3 years. So there was an amazing difference in age. And then she married somebody, and she was 12 years older than her second husband. Pardon me. So we never really know what's going on. And one of the things to think about is that if it's wartime, there might not be that many people around. There might be a lack of men. So you might be stuck with whatever is available, as it were, or you don't move from your village, and it's like, what age are they? And it's like sometimes they're very old, or sometimes they're younger, and it's like you don't have any other choices.
Right. Lots to think about. Thank you.
Linda, were you going to say something?
Well, I think what I've learned was just that all the things you told me, it kind of worked out. You said I had a lot of relatives on the one side, on my grandma's side, and what I found was, yes, a lot of different relatives, right? So because you live in Kent, and you said that, but the Bradley side just kind of peters out after a couple generations. So I'm not sure what happened there. Yeah.
that's another very good point. Is like when you're doing your research, it's quite common to find that one line there's lots and lots of information about. You can trace back loads and loads of people, and you can find loads of siblings, aunts and uncles and things. And another one you can't, and you might be stuck for whatever reason. I've got one in Scotland actually, where the people were illegitimate. I've actually got it as my screen desktop background so I can actually see. So I have Mary Robertson was the illegitimate child of Barbara Thompson and John Robertson, and I believe they worked together in Scotland. And Barbara, I believe, was illegitimate as well, and I haven't found John's parents are. I've got pretty much everybody in I think it's 3 times great grandparents except for those 2. And just to work out what's going on there, and because it's illegitimate, that just makes it that more difficult to actually try and find people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Linda, you said Brownlee. That kind of perked my ears up. The second great grandmother I'm looking for, her maiden name was Brownlee, or at least as far as I know. Spelled Browneligh.
Unusual.
Yeah, but yeah, I found like 2 other people with a name spelled that way. But you know, where did your Brownleys peter out?
No, mine aren't Brownlee. It's Bradley. Bradley.
Oh, Bradley. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I misunderstood you.
Bradley.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bill, the point you're just talking about there, that's a really important one about spelling and about people changing their names in some way. I was looking at a surname Fullerton, Fullarton, and tracing it back to somebody whose maiden name was Fullerton and they married somebody else. But looking down a couple of generations, it's suddenly got an E, Fullerton. Yeah. And it's definitely the same family, but someone's just changed it subtly. Yeah. People change things for different reasons. So it might be that they want to be more like the people that they live with, or they want to stand out in some way. So you've got to be very flexible, I think is the word, when it comes to spelling.
Yeah, my Van Duzens spelled half dozen different ways. Some dropped the Van, some were Van Duzer instead of Van Duzen. I mean, it's just
Texas.
Well, this was New York, and they were that was my Dutch line. Yeah.
And especially if people come from a different country, they sometimes anglicize the name. Yeah. So it might be something completely different, but it's what that name translates to in English. Yeah. You have to be a detective with all of this, and you have to try to just read around the subject and sort of see what are the likely things and note things down. I did that with my one name study that I'm doing for Fonblom. I just find every different spelling that I find, I write it down, because you never know when someone else will have used that. And I must be up to at least a dozen, if not more than that.
Gosh,
yeah.
There's some little formula for how long a name is and how many possible spellings there are. Just math. In my case, I have a simple 4-letter name. Ries is the name passed down to me. And it was said the family originated in Switzerland. How hard can it be? It's 4 letters. Didn't exist. Of course, the answer is, as you already know, I wrote about it. Nope, it wasn't that. It was RIS. So now I'm on the path of, okay, I learned all this stuff about RIS in Switzerland because it's this little tiny canton in the middle of the mountains in Switzerland. But the family, the widow who moves to America, I know she dies, and I know the story of the siblings. I don't know how she arrived. It's a stupid thing, but I'm like, God damn it, why can't I find that? And I've looked at all the usual suspects, and I have on my list of things to do is to go look in Canada, Halifax, and see if she entered there. But why is this so hard? Names. Yeah. When did she change her name? And it was not her name. That was her married name. So did she use her maiden name, which of course is 5 letters? Also like 6 different spellings of 5 letters. Come on, man. Why is this so hard?
Yeah.
This is where you want AI to go out and actually find all these people for you and come back,
Yeah.
and then you can go, is it that one? No, that could be. And then, yeah, that
Well,
would
there
be really
is that
useful, wouldn't it?
there is that sound alike. What one of the tools includes a
Soundex.
sound alike. Soundex,
The
yeah.
Sandex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So my 4 times great grandfather, who I mentioned before, the brick wall, talking about names, his name was McQueen. Well, how many ways could you spell that? So I've got 8 so far. And by the time his grandchildren came along, the name was McEwen. And it is like, and stayed McEwen to this day. Yeah, yeah. So I don't know whether it was how that change happened, whether it was because of I, his children were born in Jamaica, but with that name McQueen, he was there with the army. With that name McQueen, I'm presuming he was Scottish and with the British Army, but that's what I'm trying to chase up. And possibly that accent, it's been heard as McQueen. I don't know. Or someone's just written it wrong. And today, that's what it is. McEwen now, and for the last 2 generations, it's been McEwen. And as to the fact, when I first started, like 40 years ago, researching this family, people said to me, "No, that's not our family. Our family's nothing to do with McQueen. They're McEwens." Yeah, yeah. So
That's
there
one of
was a
the
lot of
things nowadays. People are quite territorial about their name, aren't they? And they
yes,
expect
yes,
everybody to use the name that they know their family by. But
yes,
a lot of people
exactly.
didn't.
Not
No, that's
not
right.
only that, but you have a family explanation of the name. Our family were Huguenot, and the name in France is Faisosan, and they came to America and they wanted to be like the English, so they changed
Yeah,
it to Son. That is the
yeah,
fact. Is it
yeah.
though?
That's what you want. That's right.
Yeah, I heard that one.
Yeah.
It's my
Yeah,
stepdad's
I think with
family.
all of these things, is there are, in inverted commas, that a lot of people have come up with over the years. And we, as family historians, genealogists, we make our assumptions as to what seems the most logical, what seems that the most sensible thing. It's like we can't actually definitively say that what we have found out is 100% correct, because it's bound to not be. There are bound to be other things in there, but we are using the knowledge that we have gained over time, our experience, and to actually say, well, on the balance of all probabilities, I think this is the most likely.
And
yeah,
honestly, I think that's where the perspective of a pro is so useful because regular folks have this is what we know. And a pro comes
yeah.
along and says, experience tells me that isn't necessarily true.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, shall we move on to my next one? Let's just do
Yeah.
that. So share. So I wanted to go right back to the beginning. So this was the first talk that I did way back in 2024. And this was about gateway ancestors and fame. So Mary Christian, being my 6 times great grandmother, she was the one who basically led me into the nobility in England. So people who were born well, who had quite a lot of money, in some cases were descended from royalty, all sorts of different things like that. So that's what I use gateway ancestor for here. However, a gateway ancestor could be somebody, for example, who was the first person to move to a different country, or it was the first person who worked in a particular industry or set up a family business, and then you carried on with that. There are different ways you can interpret this, but for this, I'm talking about royal descents and fame. So come here, hang on a moment. Ooh, my screen is not moving. Hang on. Oh, here we go. Okay, so what we have here is my royal descent. Hang on a moment. I have 2 versions of it going. Let's do that again. So we've got this one here. So I found this one of Colonel George Vanbrugh Law, who was late Madras cavalry of part of the blood royal of England. So Mary Christian, she is on this highlighted box with the arrow there, marrying the Reverend Edmund Law, who was Bishop of Carlisle. And she then had Ewan Law, and I descend down that line. But if you look back up her line, so you can see it goes back to Christian, and they're on the Isle of Man. So there's the Christian family on the Isle of Man were quite significant. And then it goes through Senhouse and Huddleston and various different things. And a lot of these are via the female line. So it goes back and forth. And so it goes up on the right, and then it goes up on the left. So when you're reading these things, you need to think about it. It's not always you go all the way down to the bottom and then you go into the next column all the way down to the bottom. You have to follow the lines and the arrows and things like that. And in this case, this goes all the way back to Edward I and Eleanor, daughter of Eleanor of Castile, daughter of Ferdinand III, the King of Castile. And this is a fairly well proven royal descent. So if you can find somebody in your family who has something like this, and you know your relation to that person, then you can basically piggyback onto it or jump onto it. So just wanted to show you that. And this came from the royal lineage of our noble and gentle families, together with their paternal ancestry by Joseph Foster. And then what I did is I actually did one for my grandmother. So I did the same sort of thing, and I basically put it all out. So putting it back so it's actually a little bit easier to read, and you can see it goes from one side to another. And what I did on this one is I also highlighted the significant people. So you've got Mary Christian down at the bottom, and two up from her, you've got Eleanor Kirby or Kirkby. So that's another royal descent, goes off in a different direction from her. And the second part of it then goes down to my grandmother. And I actually did this, and I did a version for my cousin's daughter, and I gave it to her last year, and she is very, very pleased, and she was going around and telling her friends that she was descended from royalty and things like that. So it's quite fun when you can do something like that. So gateway ancestors, that's what I wanted to actually talk about now. Have you found any interesting people who you could describe as a gateway ancestor in your tree?
No.
I mean, I've traced back to several lines where, the first person to come over to North America, but I wouldn't say any of them are particularly well known or of royal lineage.
They are your gateway ancestors in that they are the first people who came to America.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And sometimes if you can trace back to those people who came to America, depending on how far you can go back, if you can go back to the Pilgrim Fathers, things like that, many of them have got very well documented descendants and ancestry.
Yeah. Well, actually, the line you and I are connected on actually goes back to nobility. The early Quakers. The line we're connected on actually kind of offshoot is connected to William Penn. Not by blood, but by marriage. But the Quakers are kind of fun to research, but just they got into a lot of things.
One of the points you just
And
said
kept
there,
good
Phil,
records.
about being related by marriage is quite interesting, because it's like I think that I count those people as part of my family. So it doesn't matter whether we're actually blood relations or not. There is a connection. We're not directly related, but they are part of the family. And when I start doing that, I've got all sorts of different people around the edges.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hog the airwaves. This is what I love about Emma Explores, because my family are mostly labourers, farmers, mostly vagabonds. I have no royalty or nobility in my family line. But my gateway, one of my gateway ancestors is one of the ones that came to Australia first up, and I have his letters, and that has given me a lot of information, about what happened back home. And my connection to nobility that I'm going to claim, because it's the only one, is that their property was part of the Spencer estate, Diana Spencer, and because of that, it's in the manorial records, and I can't remember which episode it was, but you did mention a bit about the manorial records, so I was able to trace up a lot about that. So I've been able to get a lot of information, even though my family's not the nobility, but through those manorial records. Yeah, yeah. And I have noticed, sorry,
You carry
one
on.
of one of his sisters married someone on the what do they call it? The peer registry, or the royal peer registry of the list of all the descendancy of all the royals. So he
Yes.
married someone connected to that registry. So there's a little bit about her on that also. So it's another connection, even though they're not royal, So sometimes going sideways that way I never ever thought I would be looking at royal peerage to research my ancestor, but yeah, it gave me quite a bit of information, actually. Yeah, yeah.
That's a very important point as well there, because they had big families. The aristocracy had big families,
Yeah.
and there was only so much they could do. So the first son was supposed to inherit, the second son was supposed to go into the church, the third son would become a soldier. What happened to the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh sons?
Yeah.
Some of them ended up in quite humble professions. They didn't necessarily inherit money. They had to do whatever they did to survive. And a lot of people may be descended from those, the people slightly further out, and they're not realizing that actually they do have a connection.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Mm.
That's good. I love hearing about your nobility.
That's great.
Always happy to share. I've got quite all sorts of different stories, so it's like picking out the right ones at the right time.
That's what got me interested, I think, Emma, when you said you were had royal relatives. I'm thinking, oh my goodness.
And one
You're
of
lucky
the
she
talks
talks
that
to us.
one of the talks that I did more recently about the Markham family, and some of the descendants of the Markham family, Mosley family, the descendants of the Mosley family, and that goes down to the current King of England. So we are sixth cousins. So there's all sorts of different things where you go up and down these trees, and if there are published descents that you can find, and you can hook into them in some way, brilliant, because someone else has done the research for you. You obviously need to check it's authentic, because I was actually listening to something with Elsa Churchill of the Society of Genealogists fairly recently before Christmas, and she was talking about the pedigree rolls that they hold. Those are the ones where people have had somebody create a beautifully illustrated family history for them of some sort, and people did invent things and put them on them, so they shouldn't be taken as gospel, and people were left off, all sorts of different things. So just because you've got one of these doesn't mean that it's all correct. You still need to go through and try and verify as much as possible.
Sure.
I haven't seen it so much lately, but used to every once in a while you would run into someone who claimed that they had traced their ancestry all the way back to Adam and Eve.
She was saying that precisely, that there was somebody who had said that, and it's like, yeah.
They forgot about
Where's
they
the
forgot about the
census?
flood.
Yeah, that you get a lot of people who go back to the Norse gods practically, and so it's like, you can go back to the Saxon kings, and then it starts getting a bit, you can just go a bit further beyond that, but So I was going to go on and share again and talk about a different one this time. I don't know if anybody remembers this, but this was about Rosalinda. I did this back last year, and my grandparents had a statue of Great Aunt Rosa, and so she was a bust made from marble, and she sat by the swimming pool in their house in Sussex, and didn't really think a great deal of it. She was always Great Aunt Rosa. Her nose was a bit smashed up, but she was there. And I decided at some point to actually look into her, find out a bit more about her. And so I managed to trace her back and found out that she was Irish, and there was quite an extensive family out there. And it goes back to Rosalinda Fitzgerald. And then I thought, well, why was she called Great Aunt Rosa? Well, there's actually what they call pedigree collapse, because I'm related to her through my grandfather and grandmother. So she was, if I get this right, my grandfather's grandmother, and she was my grandmother's great aunt, because they were second cousins. Okay. And then seeing, well, what happened with Rosalinda? Where did the name go? Where did it come from? So on the English side here, we've got my grandmother, great-grandmother Naomi, right down at the bottom. And then her mother was Ada Rosalind. Her mother was Rosalinda Alicia. And then we got to Caroline. So Caroline is the first Irish person here. And Caroline was one of three sisters who were the daughters of Rosalinda Fitzgerald and David O'Connell. And basically, their children liked the name Rosalinda, and they kept it going. So I have discovered at least 14, and I think I've discovered more since I actually did the original presentation, where people are actually Rosalinda. So they're Rosalinda Emily, Eleanor, they're Rosalinda Catherine, they're Rosalind. And actually, funnily enough, I was actually thinking that my nephew and his girlfriend have moved in together recently, and I was just suggesting that in the future they might like to call one of their children Rosa. I'm thinking Rosalinda, probably not, but Rosa would be quite nice, or Rosie, something like that. So the name continues in that way. So that would be quite fun if that happens. Probably not for a few years, but we'll see there. But I thought it was quite fun to actually work out and see how many different people were actually called Rosalinda, because it's not a common name, and it doesn't appear in other parts of the family tree. So it's all concentrated in this area. So I'm going to stop sharing again, and we're going to talk about names. And have you found any names that have been repeated loads of times in your tree, where there's somebody, it's like somebody did something, somebody was famous for some reason maybe, and then you forever get the person's name put in as a second name perhaps? Who wants to start with that one?
I have one of those. I practically want to count how many. Well, actually, I'll do it right here. So my great-grandfather was a small town newspaper editor. Well, he was outsized because of a guy that lived in the same town, Dwight David Eisenhower. So he hired him when he was a kid, and one thing led to another. And so it's the famous guy. So he was Charles Moreau Harger. And his parents actually came from an area very near Bill. We've talked about this before. And so Charles Moreau begat, or at least the name, there are Charlottes. His granddaughter was named Charlotte. Charlotte, who is wonderfully a delightful lady, lives very near my daughter and acts like a grandmother to my daughter. Her granddaughter is also named Charlotte. And then there's my brother, Charlie. And then there's my nephew, Moreau. So I think that's 6 different people, 7 different people, all spawned from the same one person's name. And it's kind of lovely. There are a lot of repeated, Johns and Dons and relatively common names like that just get repeated within a family. But to see one name parsed and re-sliced into different families has always been an observation within this family. How many ways can you take that one name? How about you?
Yeah, well, I've got a bunch of that in my family. I mean, I'm a William, and there are Williams going back 200 years. My father was a William. My great grandfather was a William. They missed it with my grandfather, but there are a lot of Williams going back. Then going way back to when my Moors first came to America. For some reason, they liked the name Gershom, and there were like five, six generations of Gershams, which makes it really fun trying to figure out who's who and get get everything in the right spot. Thank goodness they let that name die, but it was not one I'd run across anywhere. But I have seen a few more since I became aware of the name. But that was definitely a name that for whatever reason was popular through the family for quite some time.
In our
We've
family,
got an unusual. Oh, sorry, Linda. You go, Linda.
in our family, it was William, and that William on the Bradley side, and that carried down. Like there was William Martin and William Frederick, and my dad was William Thomas, and my brother's William Foster Bradley, and his son is a Will. Well, he just calls him Will. So that's as far as that has gone, as far
Quite
as I know.
interesting, Linda, hearing you say that, because both of you are talking about, and I was as well, about it being repeated as a first name. Yeah. It's also quite common for it to be given as a second name. So it could be a family surname from times gone by. And so Bennett married Edwards in my family years ago. And at one point it was amalgamated to Bennett Edwards, and then it became just Edwards. But then it became Cox side, but then the Bennetts was given as a middle name to my nephew, my brother, my father. It was my grandfather's first name. And so it swaps around sometimes. It's not always a first name or always a second name.
Yeah, interesting. And then my other side, of course, the last name is Williams, like on my mom's side. So lots of William and Williams.
Yeah.
You don't want to be William Williams. That starts getting very complicated.
Yeah.
Jennifer.
Yeah. So my I might have told you this in this session that you're talking about, I think. My great-grandmother from Wales, who came to Australia, her maiden name was Lloyd. And they had, offhand, I think it was 11 children, most of them boys. They all had the middle name Lloyd, every one of them. And all of those children had huge families, mostly boys, all with the middle name Lloyd, down through the next generations. And as far down, like my father is Lloyd, Thomas Lloyd, and all his brothers are middle name Lloyd. And there's the odd one dotted in, my generation too, that this Lloyd as a middle name has carried on. And there were some families along the way who didn't have boys. So their daughters were middle name Lloyd. So they were going to have that name, one way or the other. And that, so the second great-grandmother where it first started, their Christian names, like the boys, there were so many of them, but they were all, William, Thomas, James, John, Charles, all those types of names. Those names are in every generation. So trying to research this family of William Lloyds, George Lloyds, Charles Lloyds, and trying to work out actually which generation did they fit into.
That's why you need the mother's maiden name.
Yeah. I think there was a pride in that name because my father, he always wrote his name. If he had to write his name anywhere, he wrote Thomas Lloyd Jones. He never, like I wouldn't write my name, Jennifer Allison Jones, I'd just write Jennifer Jones, but he always used that middle name Lloyd, and apparently his mother did too. And then there's the other naming thing in that family. The girls were Catherines and, traditional names like that in each generation. But my grandmother was Emily. And I went to because my father was orphaned, I went to not at birth, but a bit later. I went to a reunion because they contacted me through my blog. They'd seen me online. And there was a lady there who was in her 90s, And I was so looking forward to talking to her, because it appeared to me that my grandmother was estranged from her family, but I didn't know because I didn't know the family. Well, she was so, she grabbed me right at the start and she just had to tell me that I had the wrong family. There were no Emilys. Her husband would have been Emily's brother. There were no Emilys in the family, and she knew the family well and all this. And I was so pleased I had taken along, my paperwork, and I had a birth certificate and all that. And she was absolutely gobsmacked that there was an Emily. Number one, that she didn't know who she was, but also it was a fairly modern type of name compared to the other names they had, and she'd never heard of any, and I've never come across an Emily in any research. So from going from all these traditional names and continuing their naming pattern, somehow they've thrown in an Emily along the way. Yeah, yeah. So she was absolutely lovely to find another, sister for her husband that they never knew about. Yeah, yeah.
That's the thing about this. You never know what you're going to discover. These chance conversations that you have, and
Yeah,
all of a sudden,
yeah.
I had something the other day where I was looking for Hodges, and one of my great grandmothers, her name is Marianne Hodges, and I didn't know about her mother. I found her father. Her father was Thomas, and trying to work out who her mother was. Well, I thought it might be Maria. I'd found records, and it's fairly likely, but I wasn't sure. And on a secondhand book site, there was a Bible for sale, and it turned out it was Marianne's Bible. And it was £300. And I just thought, can't really afford £300 on a Bible. So I thought, okay, who's selling it? So I did a bit of digging and I found this person's name and I found his phone number. I gave him a ring and I said, you've got this Bible for sale. And it looks like there's some writing in there, and it says it was Marianne's, but it looks like there's some writing sort of behind that on the previous pages. It's sort of bled through. And I said, would you be able to sort of show? I'm really sorry, I can't spend £300 on it, but I'm happy to sort of publicise you, etc., etc. So Books, he was a great bookseller. I'll find his details. And he very kindly, because I said it was for my own family history, he took photographs of it and he sent them through to me.
Aww.
And it proved that her name was Maria, and it was Maria Locke, and that she'd married that. And that was just this chance conversation of just trying something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's amazing. Yeah, yeah.
So there's two other areas that I'd like to skip through, and I'm aware it's about 10 to 7 in our time in the evening. So I just want to do a couple of things relatively quickly. So I'm going to share my screen again. And we're going to go to one of the big families that I mentioned. So there was a man called Sir Robert Wigram, who basically started out with nothing, and he ended up with a lot of money and a very big family. So he was the one that had 23 children. And I think I haven't come across anybody else in my family who's got more than that. There's one or two that have got quite a few. And he called his fifth son Money. And I've never come across that. So obviously money was quite important to him. And there was this lovely pen and ink drawing. And I just thought I wanted to show this. Shows absolutely everybody, the whole family. And it names them, says when they lived and everything like that. And you can see from the basically he married twice. So his first wife is in the portrait because she died by this point, with the child that she had there. And then the rest, I believe, there might have been one or two from the first wife, but the majority were from the second wife. And obviously with the age difference, some of the older ones were then having children whilst the parents were still having children, because there's a lot of them. But I just thought something like this isn't actually my own family. So this is where we're talking about people at the edges of our family. But I thought this is a lovely illustration which just shows that family. Not something you would see very often.
Oh.
And then moving on to other families. Hang on a moment, has my mouse gone? Oh, that's just my computer, unfortunately, is not behaving itself today. So hang on a moment, let's just go backwards. So this was a gentleman by the name of James Blatch Cox, who I talked about. And basically, he had quite a large family, and they all went, a lot of them went out to America, Canada, and different things. And so he had 9 children. And of their children, one had 11, 9, 7, 11, 18, 10, 9, 8. So they had 85 grandchildren.
Oh,
And I would love to know if anybody can find a family that's bigger than that. Yeah. And so when we put this out, let's see if anybody can actually do that. Because can you imagine that? They couldn't have all met together. You wouldn't get them in a house or anything
Yeah.
like that.
no, no,
Oh,
85 grandchildren.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
the 85 grandchildren challenge. Can you beat that?
And the 23 children in the other one, 23 children or 85 grandchildren. Can you beat either of those? And I bet somebody can.
A question for you, Emma. On the picture with all of the 23 children, you
Yeah.
mentioned the wife. Was this the second wife who has the baby in her arms?
First wife, yeah.
Are both wives there?
Yep. So I don't know if you can see on the screen, the picture said Mrs. Wigram, first wife, and then Lady Wigram is almost directly below her, second wife, with
Wow.
Arthur there.
Awkward.
Yeah. Okay. So that was my thing about children and large families. Anyone's in yours? I know, Jennifer, you said 11. That's pretty respectable.
Yeah, 13, I think, is my largest. I thought that was pretty large until now.
I was quite shocked when I found these, to be quite honest.
No, I have some going 19th century, early 19th century that are on the order of 13 children, but many of those are cases where the birth, the child dies very young, so there may have been 6 or 7 who survive because it was tough out there. Wow.
Yeah.
In this instance, they all survived and they all had children, which is quite
There
unusual,
was money.
I think.
There was money.
They could afford to feed themselves, and
Yeah.
it was such that they lived in a town in Cornwall called Falmouth, which was a fishing village or fishing town. So there was always food around. And they actually part of the family acted as they called them envoys, I think it was. So with the boats that went between different countries. So they had things coming in from different places there. So they probably had access to a lot more things than most people.
Yeah, right.
Just curious, Emma,
For the health.
do you have the probate records for that family? She said that would be really interesting to see how he split things up with that many heirs.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, they put the prices up from probate and wills. They used to be £1.50. So when they were £1.50, I got loads, and they've gone up to £16, and it's like, well, hey, I have to think about it. So rather than just getting 10, which I would have done previously, no, it's a lot of money. Any other large families?
I've got some, that have 10, 12 kids. I haven't built out the next generation on all of them. Be something interesting to do.
I'm quite interested to see with DNA, as you were talking about earlier on. I think it's a great way of finding distant cousins and then being able to share information with them.
Oh yeah.
And then it's sort of down to trying to trace living people and sort of seeing what happened to people, because sometimes you can look and it's like, oh, there are 5 children, none of them had any children, or one might have had a child and the child died, so basically that line's gone. And other lines, it seems to go on for generations, and there aren't really any patterns. Some of them were from well-educated people who did things. It might have been the instances I was talking about earlier on, where external circumstances meant that people died for whatever reason, or people moved to other countries and they just chose not to, or they didn't have the opportunity to get married.
Yeah, I've got a case I'm working on right now for my cousin's son. He took a DNA test. My grandmother had told my mom years ago that her oldest son was not my grandfather's. She was apparently a little bit pregnant when they got married. But we don't know who the father actually is. So I'm working through his DNA now to see if we can find that. We also are trying to figure out who his grandmother's parents were, because no one in the family knows. So I'm be playing deep in DNA on that one for a while to try to help him out.
Okay, so the last area that I actually want to discuss, let's do this one. Full text search on FamilySearch. I don't know if anybody was at my talk that I did. I discovered a book of family letters from the Phillips family. And I wouldn't have known about this because Phillips aren't my direct line, although they're cousins. They are first cousins. But it goes back to the 1700s. But within this, it's Fonblanc, which is the name that I'm interested in. It's my grandmother's name, and it goes back to Huguenots in France and everything like that. But actually discovering this and then saying that these are all letters where people talked about their lives. And so, dear cousin, enclosed you have £10. And then talks about them going to take the waters. It talks about them traveling in Scotland and everything. But I wouldn't have actually found out. And even my great grandfather or my great uncle's death in Scotland, in France, there's a description done by his cousin out there saying that he went out there and unfortunately he died. He was very ill. They tried to get lots of doctors, and after 2 or 3 days he died. And then they talked about the people left there, his mother and sisters and things like that. And I wouldn't have had any of that information without full text search on FamilySearch. So I wanted to ask, has anybody used it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think full text search is probably the biggest thing that's happened in genealogy in years. Ancestry now has their own version of it too. But I found a lot of land records, deeds, and such. But also for one of my ancestors, I found his military records and land patent. He was granted land in South Carolina after the Revolutionary War. And I found all those records. They weren't indexed, but full text search pulled them up. So yeah,
I think it's something to look again. So every now and then have a look and see what else has come up as a result of people putting new things online.
I've played around a little bit with the free text search, which is like full text search, but with parsing of a sentence. So you describe what you're looking for in a prompt, in a sentence. It didn't work terribly well, but it's on its way. It's in labs, in FamilySearch labs. Worth a play.
Definitely.
Yeah. FamilySearch labs, if you haven't gone into the labs, you should.
Mm. Yeah.
It's all the things that they're working on, playing with, and that may or may not ever, go into the main part of FamilySearch. But there are some amazing things that they'll just pop in there, won't say anything about them. But if you sign up for labs, you can go in there and play too.
Yeah.
I think we're actually in a golden age of genealogy. And basically, there's just so much coming online now. There's all these different tools, AI. I'm going to talk to Denise at some point on the podcast and ask her about what's going to be happening in AI going forward and her advice and things. And I just think it's amazing. We are so fortunate.
It's just become a part of what we live and breathe now in everything we do. I use Grammarly, which is AI, in simply writing and rewriting and editing and so on, and spell checking, and in using it applied to your documents and your research. It creates it's like having that assistant that Denise Allen's always talking about. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's going to be really exciting to see what happens over the next few years, isn't it? And what comes out and all the new developments that are there, and what difference things like AI is going to make for what the wealth of information that's out there, because we've never had as much information as we've got now, and in some ways it is quite overwhelming. And how do you deal with it all? And sort of maybe we'll even get AI helping us organize our own records and sort of say, oh, this logically fits with so and so, and why didn't you put that in there? It's like, hey, who knows?
Well, and AI to search your own records in the same way it searches any other, material. So it's it's an extraordinary time. Speaking of which, by the way, we'll talk some more in the coming weeks about Roots Tech coming up. But one of the best things that you can do in your own records is to find cousins who have also been searching with you, and will have human insights and perspectives to share about the research that they've found. I know some of you have already found this, but coming out, I have a post coming out on Saturday talking about a few things that Project Kin has coming on Roots Tech, but a little preview is that you may already know about FamilySearch's famous ancestors, which is up there now under language, then discovery, then famous, I think, is the URL. But the database behind that is called a relative finder, which is really kind of like a browser to the database with friends, or to see how you're connected to these famous people. So I have created a little private group as an adjunct to our Roots Tech ride along ahead of relatives at Roots Tech. And you can pop on over to relativefinder.org and search for the group called Project Kin. In there is the ride along. And several of you are already in there. Come on down. We're having a good time.
Bill and I are cousins, aren't we, Bill?
Yeah. Yes, we are.
And I'm cousins with both of you.
Yeah.
Fun.
And as a reminder, that leverages the FamilySearch database because, they're the sponsors. So it's a good nudge to get in there and take a close look at take the time to look in your FamilySearch configuration. If you've got learnings elsewhere to bring into FamilySearch, now's a real good time to do it. It especially benefits as you go up the tree, the number of common cousins goes out. So it's a good thing to see how far up you can go in the tree, and you'll be amazed at what you find. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Emma? Go ahead.
Two things. So I wanted to say about some of the potential topics I've got coming up. I haven't decided when I'm going to be doing them, but I want to do something on artists, sculptors, and painters, using newspapers, military history, Quakers, Bill, my Uncle Charles and his boat that he built in Canada and sailed down to the Caribbean, epigenetics and inheritance, collaborating with living cousins. I'm going to probably do something about organizing things, how to be organized, and DNA. So I'm not promising that will be this year, but those are some of the topics that I'm thinking about trying to pick out from either my records or my family, and just to see how we do. And Roots Tech. Oh, sorry, Barbara, carry on.
I was only going to just double that plug by saying that, collaborating with cousins would be a great topic to pick up right after Roots Tech, because, we may very well have just made some new connections.
Okay, I'll put it down, hopefully for February one. No, April. That will be April. And finally, I will be interviewing Lucy from FamilySearch later in January, and we're going to be talking about Roots Tech, what's coming up, who the speakers are, how to make the best of it, and that sort of thing. So that will be coming out on the podcast sometime probably the last week of January.
Yay. Great. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Emma. Would love to hear what you all think of this format we used today. Of course, we had that special opportunity to reflect back on all the past episodes. I'll do my best to reference them in the notes. Feel free to chime in with additional suggestions and references as you like in the comments, which will be below the recording. Again, thank you all so much for joining us today. It is always illuminating and delightful to take these take this journey together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
everybody.
Emma.
Thank you. Mhm.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.